Welcome to Rock Your Retirement, and today you are in for a treat. I got to interview Fritzi Grode. It's so funny. I've had so much trouble pronouncing her name. It's Fritzi Grodeon, and very chic sounding, isn't it? And she is somebody who helps you take your home and make it safe for yourself or your parents as they age. And she gave us so much information. This is jam packed. One of the things that she gave us were the 6 tips of helping change your home in case you have somebody with Alzheimer's living there. This helps you reduce your stress and theirs. So I hope that you find this as informational as I did on today's episode of Rock Your Retirement.
Talking with people about how to have a great retirement. This is the Rock Your Retirement Show. We don't talk about money, but we talk about almost everything else you need to rock your retirement. Now, here's your host, Kathy Klein.
Welcome to Rock Your Retirement, and today we're talking with Fritzi Grodeon, who is a certified aging in place specialist, trainer, and chief advocacy officer at Age Safe America. That's a mouthful. She works with some home remodeling specialists, occupational therapists, medical supply professionals, and others who want to help people stay at home safely. Now, additionally, she's an award-winning author of the book Grace, Grit, Insights to Real-Life Challenges of Aging for Adult Children and Their Parents. And I'm sorry, I actually messed up the title of her book. It's Grace and Grit, Insights to Real-Life Challenges of Aging for Adult Children and Their Parents. I thought Fritzi would be a fabulous guest today because many of us are dealing with issues as our parents age. Sometimes it just takes some simple modifications to keep our parents safe in their own homes. And Fritzi is going to talk with us about that today. Fritzi, welcome to the show, and I hope I didn't mess everything up.
It's all good. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Fritzi, what did you do before you started helping our parents age safely in their homes?
My last career in New York for 22 years, I was an environmental consultant, working primarily in hazardous materials, asbestos, lead, mold, and I worked in schools, commercial buildings, hospitals, and in people's homes. In the middle of that career cycle, I also formed the first senior move management company on Long Island. So it was a completely different industry, and it was the first time and a little bit ahead of its time, I have to confess, because it took a while to get it started. But senior move management is working with families doing the downsizing, packing, and moving, and then setting up the new home or apartment, replicating to the very best of our ability what the original home environment looked like. So over the 10 years that I was doing that work, there were probably about 1,000 families that came through our company transitions. And the manager, when I was choosing to leave New York and to come to California, then the manager running the business, she and her husband took it over, and the business is still thriving on Long Island. So I'm proud of that time.
That's really cool. You know, it's funny because we had an interview, a guest on the show who does that, and I got lots of emails from people saying, wow, I didn't know that kind of service existed. So that's pretty cool. So you were a groundbreaker.
Yes, and I think for household guardians now and this home safety and aging in place niche, I kind of find myself in the same place because people are still not used to the idea that someone is really trained to help them do it and do it successfully and easily.
How do you do that? Do you go into people's homes and just take a look at what they're doing, or do you mostly work with the other professionals these days?
Actually, the magic is really the work in people's homes. And there's a 240-point assessment.
Wow,
Yeah.
240 points.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. It's very extensive. And mostly I really just try to reassure people that other than in the pathways, I'm really not concerned about clutter. I don't care how neat your home is. I really work very hard to ensure that the clients and where they are in their space and what their needs and their changing needs might be get addressed. It's outside the house, inside, room by room. There's a lot of points to consider.
And is it mostly people like me who, I have a father, he has Parkinson's and was just diagnosed with, they said Alzheimer's, but I don't know if it was Alzheimer's or some other type of dementia. And I know that when I have visited them in the past, I was so upset because they had throw rugs laying around and my dad falls about 1,000,000 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
Is it mostly that kind of thing, or is it grab bars, stair lifts? What types of things do you do?
Well, actually, my first personal interest is in lighting, because having enough light to really see where our pathways are, yes, absolutely, removing tripping hazards is very important as well. But improving the lighting and using things like small battery-powered motion sensor lights to give us an extra boost of light in a hallway or going from room to room really can make a difference for us in terms of being able to see where we want to be able to put our feet and avoid any hazards, any tripping hazards. But there's a lot more to it than simply tripping hazards themselves. A lot of, for example, when we start outside the house, there are about at least 7 things that I look at just on the front door in terms of the ease of use of the handle, lighted doorbells, a little bench by the side of the door so you can put your packages down while you fumble with the keys. Is there a security peephole? If somebody has low vision, there are devices that can go on the inside of a peephole that are actually the size of a smartphone. So someone with lower vision doesn't have to try to peer out the small hole in the window, but on the door itself, it looks just like a simple peephole to anybody from the other side. So there are lots of things we can do even before we step into the house itself for safety.
Wow, you have really opened my eyes already, and we just started this conversation. So how did you get into this? I mean, you moved from the East Coast to the West and started this business. What gave you the idea?
Part of it happened during the 10 years I was a senior move manager, because folks really, for the most part, 85% of us don't want to move. And there's typically a trigger event in the family that forces that change to take place. So for people wanting to stay home, that was, for me, it was a big marketplace, but it's also the work of my heart. My mother had low vision. My dad had neuropathy from diabetes. So I knew that there were things that I was doing as a long distance caregiver and when I would come on holiday to make sure that the small improvements were being made in the house. I knew that that was an area in which I wanted to work. So when I first came to California, I stayed in the hazardous materials area and I did some training in that. And then I began to actually build this household guardians business, and I finished my book once I got here, and all of those pieces are coming together now that I'm here in California.
What type of modifications are there? If there's 200, how many did you say? 260 points?
Yes.
So does that mean there's 260 types of modifications that you can make, or how does that work?
No, that's really the number of places that I'm looking, or my household guardians advisors, safety advisors are looking, including measuring widths of doorways, heights of thresholds, looking for non-slip surfaces. And yes, absolutely, security bars, safety bars, the vocabulary around grab bars is changing, partly because boomers are more egotistical than any previous generation. So grab bars may disappear from the vocabulary as designers create balance bars and safety bars in bathrooms. But certainly those are always primary in terms of suggestions if they're not already there.
I like the term balance bars. It makes me sound like a ballerina.
There you go. That just proves the point. And now, what's also happening is the product manufacturers are now doing them in designer finishes. And there's an Italian company that does them in bright colors. So if you're having your bathroom remodeled and you have beautiful tile in the shower, and naturally we would recommend no threshold, linear drain, all of those things. But the safety bars can actually appear to be a decorative accessory and not the industrial or hospital look at all in a beautifully remodeled bathroom.
Oh, that's so wonderful. I have a friend of mine who's a designer. I need to tell her that.
I'm sure at this point, because it's becoming more and more popular, but absolutely share the information. I just yesterday met someone who had learned, not from me, unfortunately, but from someone else, which I'm gracious, the toilet paper holder.
Yeah.
There's a new style that's a toilet paper holder, and it has like a semicircle over the top of it. So it looks like, that's a very interesting decorative feature. In fact, that's a safety bar. So if this toilet paper holder is mounted correctly, it can support 250 pounds of
Oh
transfer
my
weight.
gosh, that's
And
amazing.
so you don't have necessarily, another form of support next to the toilet. You can simply put in a new toilet paper holder and create that extra sense of safety and actual safety right there. This is not exactly what you may have thought was the rock your retirement topic, but toilet paper holders work.
How to rock your retirement with toilet paper holders. That might be the title of the show.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So this is really fascinating. What types of modifications do people usually make, and are they expensive?
Some of the first things that we recommend are the easy things you can do in your home, especially related to lighting. The battery-powered motion sensor lights, using the new LED lights on a ribbon. You can put them along railings, and they're cool to the touch. So you could put it underneath a railing for light. You can peel them up a stairway to create extra light, put them on toe kicks under cabinets. There's lots of the very affordable things. Johns Hopkins University did a study, and they said that about $1,400 worth of products installed in a home would make a significant difference in the fall risk for that amount. And then, when people are going to be doing more, if they have a situation that's going to have greater mobility issues, where you're going to be having to widen doorways or do a bathroom remodel, those things naturally cost more money.
If they don't need a bathroom remodel, but just need to increase the lighting, then it's going to be $1,400 or less?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And you could have safety bars installed. I mean, you could do several things that would be very affordable and would get you started. One of the things that I have discovered is, even when I do an assessment and leave a motion sensor light as a gift, that little bit of a change is enough to raise our consciousness about safety and to say, gee, that little change did make a difference. And then it encourages us to make another change and another. It's like a good golf shot. Apparently people who play golf tell me that when you make a really good golf shot, that you'll somehow want to come back and play again. That's news to me, but
well, I've never made a really good golf shot, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, well, I think I made one in 1992. You can tell how often I've played subsequently. But it's the same idea, that making the small changes. Of course, if somebody's coming home after a surgery, coming out of rehab, and you really need to do more, then it will cost more. And, some of those things, there's ways to get financing or ways to get financial support for some of those items. But yeah, I mean, I don't want people to think that they can do whole house remodel for $1,500.
No, of course not.
But we certainly can. We can certainly take steps that will improve our safety and kind of reduce our worry a bit, kind of reduce some of the stress related to, am I going to get that call about mom or dad? And also, I mean, we'll see the changes in the technologies are increasing so quickly that technology is making a difference. And you mentioned your dad and Parkinson's. There are changes that you can do in someone's home that you can do some things now, and then as his needs change, then you can add additional things later. Like, you don't have to do everything all at once, but for example, adding railings along the hallway, along spaces where he walks, that he can grab onto something in a place that you might not have thought of it before. And some houses, for example, have wainscoting as a decorative feature. So if you add a railing above the wainscoting, you haven't institutionalized the home. Nobody notices. It's just a feature. It's like the concept of universal design, where the features in the home really work for people of all ages and all abilities. And so those changes that can be made, they can happen as a person's physical condition. Sometimes it improves, sometimes it doesn't. And we're able to kind of help the family also do a bit of a look ahead and say, this is where we are now, and this is where we might be in 6 months. If you're not there, then, we'll look a little bit further out, but we're still going to be there to support you and making those changes that are going to make life continue to be easier as you go along.
Well, that's really good. Thank you so much for that. How would someone like me, who, I'm far away from my parents, how do I know when it's time to start talking with them about making some changes to their home?
As soon as you can. I mean, it's really, it becomes a conversation that's more about you. And that's how I really started with my mom. I lived in New York. My mom was here. We were both widowed in 2003, and my brothers were here in California and doing a great job. And every time I came on holiday or vacation, I would do more things with her. And she and I had a fabulous communications. I mean, God bless her. We got her up on email after my dad passed because he wouldn't let the computer in the house. And I was able to keep track of things with her and give her a forum to be able to share her concerns. But when it came, for example, to a personal alert system, a personal monitoring system, she had taken a fall in the house and she had a bit of vertigo. So she unlocked the front door when she felt dizzy, and she called 911, and then she fell.
Oh my gosh.
And I always give her enormous credit for unlocking the front door before she fell. But after that incident, then she said, well, you see how well I did that? And I said, that's fine, but let's consider personal monitoring, personal alert pendant. And so that's the direction that we went. And eventually it really did prove to be valuable for our family. But she wouldn't do it for herself.
She had to do it because you asked her
And
to.
But she would do it for me. I was blessed that we had that relationship, that we could have that kind of a conversation.
Some of those pendants these days don't look bad.
No, and they're finally figuring that out too. I mean, they now make watches. I saw 2 years ago at a conference this exquisite man's, like in the big, gigantic executive watch, and the side of it, you just hit the button and it became a medical alert watch. But it didn't look like it. It just looked like a magnificent executive man's watch. But it had a GPS built in and a medical alert system built into it. So a lot of the wearable technologies are changing. We're going to find more. I mean, our cell phones, if you have it in your pocket, it knows where you are in the world kind of at all times. So
right. That's pretty cool, because the old technology only worked in your own home, right? It didn't work when you were out shopping or wherever you were.
Right. So more of those, the companies are figuring that out and using the technologies that were designed for other uses now for our needs. Another interesting example is if someone has an Alzheimer's family member who might have a propensity to wander, they make something called smart soles, and they are shoe inserts that have GPS in them and an alert system. People have been known to put a bracelet or an ankle bracelet on a family member that might tend to wander, but people are smart. I mean, they figure out how to take those things off. But if you have a shoe insert and someone puts their shoes on and walks out the door and walks 2 miles down the road, you'll be able to get an alert on your smartphone at whatever set distance they're not supposed to be out alone.
That is awesome.
Yeah, they're called smart soles.
Who thought of that? I mean, that person was brilliant.
Yeah, somebody who had a family member who wandered and access to a GPS technology.
I'm speechless. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that is so awesome. Smart Souls. And I was thinking, okay, so I don't know if you remember the show Get Smart. Yes. I wonder if that's how they came up with the name Smart Souls. For my listeners who don't remember, that show was a pretty cheesy secret agent show. And when I was a young girl, I wanted to be Agent 99. My first AOL name was Agent99 at AOL.com or something like that. But I'm thinking I want one of those GPS technologies, but I want mine to be the Star Trek badge.
Ah,
Do you think they will make a piece of jewelry that looks like the Star Trek? I can see myself when I'm 90 wearing a Star Trek badge.
well, you know what? I'll just drop a line to the contact I have, and we'll see if we can't get that into production for you.
I don't know how many of our parents want to wear a Star Trek badge, so it might be ahead of its time.
Trust me, you've met me now. Ahead of my time that's where I live. So I'm
Great.
all over Star Trek GPS badges.
I love
I'm
it.
making a note now.
Good. And then when the beam me up technology comes, I want to be beamed up too.
Okay.
So you had alluded to some of these changes might be a bit expensive, and you said that there are ways to pay for it. Are these basically loans against your home, or is there a federal, or are there state programs to help? What about expensive modifications that somebody might not be able to afford?
Yes, the short answer is there are different kinds of loans against the house. If the house is paid for, you can take a new first mortgage. Some people will do a reverse mortgage, and the rules for that have changed drastically to really protect homeowners and their heirs. There are some veterans. There is a veterans benefit that may take a while with the paperwork, but they have a very specific home modification benefit that's separate from what we understand to be aid and attendance. Some communities will offer tax rebates or loans against a property. Those in the past have been related to energy efficiency and weatherization. But if you were going to do some changes to the doorways, for example, or changes to the windows to make them more accessible for someone who might have a mobility issue, then if you put weather-tight windows in, you could apply for the windows under a weatherization program, and then the advantage is that someone, for example, in a wheelchair would be able to open and close those windows where they might not be able to now. Not everything is covered like that, but there are some creative ways to get some financial support for parts of this process. And other than that, people have to just fund it themselves. You can make some, I believe, selections and some modifications, perhaps out of a Roth IRA, if you had that instrument. I'm not exactly sure, and I'm not a financial planner, but I know at the national level, based on the information that I got when I was in Washington in March, that there are a number of organizations looking to create a family caregiving tax credit because the cost to families is so high simply on the caregiving side, and then looking at changes in the regulations for use of 401k money as well. So there's some folks at the national level trying to drive some legislation that would provide in the future more opportunities, because there's simply going to be more of us as citizens that are going to be moving into this particular time and space. And the enormous costs on the medical side, the lifetime cost of a broken hip can be over $70,000.
Oh my gosh.
And if you put $70,000 worth of renovations in your home and you avoided the broken hip, then the medical system is way ahead of the game. And so now there are even homeowners insurance companies looking at newer policies that would be like Homeowners Plus. So if you had, as happened in the home that I was renting before this one, a slab leak and a master shower pan leak, that
Wonderful.
yeah, 4 months sleeping on an air mattress. I was a happy camper. But anyway, so the house was restored through the homeowner's insurance. The companies are now looking, especially those that carry multiple lines, that if they did Homeowners Plus, where I paid a little bit more in the premium if I'd been the landlord, that when the shower was restored, then the safety bars would go in and the linear drain would go in and the no threshold. So as it was in the house I was renting, they restored it the way it was. So if I wanted safety bars, they were on me. And so, we put in safety bars. But the idea is that the larger entities that are looking at how national resources, how national monetary resources and financial resources are spent, are looking at a number of these issues and ways to help homeowners build some of that into more creative ways to be able to address these issues, because the costs of alternative housing is so high, 45, 60,000 a year or more. Certainly in San Diego County, in an assisted living community. I mean, there's a lot of home remodels that you could do for that $60,000 that buys you more than 1 year
Exactly.
in the home that you love.
Absolutely. That is definitely a good point. So we're starting to get to the end of the show. And before we do, before the interview, you and I were talking about the 6 things that you can do in your home, or 6 easy things. We want to be able to give my listeners some tips on how they can reduce stress when they have an Alzheimer's patient living at home.
Yes. The 6 easy things. One is to check the lighting in the house to reduce glare, including reflections off shiny kitchen countertops, and also to reduce shadows, because the glare and the shadows can be triggers for aggressive behavior. And another is to remove or cover mirrors and also reflective surfaces, because sometimes the Alzheimer's patient will not recognize, even if it's themselves in the mirror. In addition to that, family pictures. We put out family pictures, and for those of us who don't have Alzheimer's, because we think that it will help them remember us. But if the part of their brain that will do that recognition isn't functioning, then it looks like there are strangers in their homes.
So remove those family
remove
pictures.
the family pictures and just put pictures of flowers, landscapes, seascapes, anything that's a pleasant picture, but not family pictures, not faces, because then they either may be agitated that why are strangers' pictures in their homes, or early on frustrated because they can acknowledge that they don't remember. And so it just creates kind of an unspoken stress. Also, busy patterns in floors, on walls, in furniture. That's also another stimulus that creates confusion. So if you have a beautiful paisley covered sofa, put a lovely beige sheet over the top of it. Just cover up anything that adds to the visual stimulation. Also, the use of color can help a person differentiate between like a plate and a placemat. And if you substitute plastic glasses and beautiful plastic plates for your china and regular glasses, I mean, I'm not suggesting that we give people plastic mugs to drink out of, but anything that will just avoid an accident and still be beautiful, so the person is still participating the same as anyone in the family. Also, odors and sharp sounds can be triggers for stress. So the use of lavender as a calming fragrance is recommended. Soft background music can also reduce the stresses. I had an aromatherapy specialist tell me one time that the herb rosemary is in fact a trigger for stress. And I've seen here in Southern California beautiful rosemary hedges and plants, and people have herb gardens. But if you have a patient with Alzheimer's, that fragrance of rosemary may be a trigger.
So pull out the rosemary and put in lavender.
Put in lavender, right.
They can be hedged as well. Very, very good advice. Thank you. You have been such a wealth of information. This has been power-packed. Oh, before we go, what is the contact information that you'd like to give out for my listeners?
My phone number is 800-984-1186. And my email address is Fritzi, Fritzi, @householdguardians.com. And the website is householdguardians.com.
Oh, thank you, Fritzi, for coming on the show today. Your information was so important to us. Many of us have parents and in-laws, and some of us have spouses who are aging, and we definitely want to keep them safe. So that helps us rock our own retirement when we are not stressing out about our loved ones. Thanks again, Fritzi, for coming on the show.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to share the information. The more we know, the better off we all are.
Absolutely. And to get today's freebie, the 6 easy tips to change your home for someone living with Alzheimer's, just go to rockyourretirement.com/ALZ. We will see you next time. on Rock Your Retirement.
Thanks for listening to the Rock Your Retirement Show. If you are rocking your retirement or know someone who would make a great guest on our show, please send us an email at podcast@rockyourretirement.com.
Hi, this is Kathy. When I'm not hosting Rock Your Retirement, I'm helping people with their Medicare insurance. One of the times you need to check your Medicare insurance is when you've moved. To get my free guide, 5 Things You Need to Know About Medicare When You Are Moving, just go to medicarequick.com/move. And in the meantime, listen to these cool disclosures. Neither Medicare Quick nor its agents is connected with the federal Medicare program. Medical insurance licensed in the states of California, Florida, Nevada, and Texas, and Medicare Advantage and prescription drug plan service areas vary. California Insurance License 0797566.